They got Willa. They got my daughter. I need to find her. Ah!
From acclaimed director Paul Thomas Anderson.
You can save that girl.
Today, experience what is being called the best movie of the year.
This is the end of the line. Not for you.
Leonardo DiCaprio, Sean Penn, Benicio del Toro, Tiana Taylor, Chase Infinity.
Let's go! Here I am.
One battle after another. Now playing only in theaters. Experience it in IMAX. Rated R. Under 17 animated without parent.
You can't hide.
Finish training for the day? Time to fight post-workout fatigue with Core Power Protein Shakes. They're packed with 26 grams of high-quality protein to build muscle and electrolytes to help hydrate. The nutrition you need to help your body replenish, rebuild, and repair post-workout so you can power on to the next one. Champion your recovery with Core Power. Visit corepower.com to learn more.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
For a limited time at McDonald's, get a Big Mac Extra Value Meal for $8. That means 2 all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun, and medium fries, and a drink. We may need to change that jingle.
Prices and participation may vary.
Wish you could become a morning person? You know the type, up before the sun, early morning runs, first one to the office with donuts and a smile. How do they do it? Easy. With the new Galaxy Watch 8, sleep tracking and personalized insights from Samsung Health help you improve so you can wake up to a whole new you. One who, dare I say it, skips the snooze? It's possible. Train your sleep with Galaxy Watch 8. Learn more at Samsung.com. Requires compatible Samsung Galaxy phone, Samsung Health app, and Samsung account.
Hey there, Duke fans. Welcome to episode 756 of the DBR Podcast, the Duke Basketball Roundup. Jason Evans here for your listening enjoyment. I'm joined by my buddy, Donald Wine. Donald, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. It's been a productive week, and I'm looking forward to taking some time on Friday to, Jason, get this, watch some basketball. We get to watch basketball on Friday.
Oh my goodness. Yes. Countdown. Our first real look at the 2025-2026 Blue Devils is coming at us on Friday evening. It'll be available on ESPN Plus, ACC Network Extra. If for some reason you have trouble, maybe you got plans Friday night or whatever, if you have trouble watching it, don't worry. Donald and I will come back to recap it sometime this coming weekend. But before we can recap, we have to preview. And Donald, you and I figured out the way that we're going to do this preview is we each have come up with 3 things that we are looking for at Countdown, 3 things we're hoping to see from the team. Why don't you get us started? 3 things each, and we've coordinated a little bit. Like, it's not going to be like you're going to say something, I'm going to be like, hey, that's my item number 2. We know what we're doing here.
We talked beforehand.
Yes. But why don't you get us started? What is the thing you're looking forward to the most? What are you hoping to see the most from the Duke Blue Devils at Countdown to Craziness on Friday evening?
So before we get to what we're here to talk about, Jason, because we're talking about 3 things on the court that we're looking for. The one overarching thing that I think everybody, and you and I have talked about this on shows before, has been the personalities of these players. We as a larger fan base get to be introduced to this team for the first time, in essence, on Friday night. And so we'll get the song, we'll get the dancing, we'll get the personality. I don't know if anyone's going to bust out a saxophone or something like that, but we get to watch it and hope and see what these guys are like and see how these guys endear themselves to us. Also, the women get to do this as well. So it's going to be a real nice night of getting to know our basketball teams. Now, on the court, I think the first thing that I'm looking for, Jason, is quite simply, how real is Cam's deal? Right? Like, he has been the guy that we have talked about for 3 years, ever since his dad, who I guess was a good basketball player at some point in his career.
I've heard of him, I think.
Heard of him? Yeah. He was on this show once, and we were talking about his then, I guess, sophomore Cameron Boozer as one of the best players in high school basketball. He only went better than that. He is arguably the best, or at least the most prolifically decorated high school basketball talent that has ever lived. And now he comes to Duke, and we get to kind of see him on a basketball court for the first time. Now, will it be polished basketball? No. But I want to see how this team kind of flows around him, because we've kind of heard through everybody, including John Shire, that this team is kind of being built around the talents of Cameron Boozer. So I'm looking to see how real that is, how he works with his teammates, how does he look like the best player on the floor, things like that, which is very hard to do on a Duke basketball court. But I'm looking to see how that works and get, I guess, the first look at Cameron Boozer, the Duke basketball player, on the basketball court.
Yeah, and to piggyback off of what you're saying, I think the thing I'm looking for from Cam is how much does the team run the offense through him versus, how much do they rely on other people? And, is he primarily taking the ball in the post? Is he primarily operating on the perimeter? We've gotten a lot of hints that Cam is mostly going to be a perimeter-oriented kind of guy. Not the same as Cooper Flagg. You and I have said this so many times, Donald. Not the same as Cooper Flagg. But in terms of his impact, in terms of how much the ball is in his hands, maybe not entirely different from Cooper Flagg. All right, so that takes me to my first thing that I'm looking for. And this is going to be very, very specific. I am looking to see, does Dame Sarr play off of 1 foot or 2? And I know there are a lot of you out there who are like, wait, what are you talking? 1 foot or 2 foot? I'm telling you, this is a huge difference between European players and the best players in the United States. In Europe, they mostly play off of 1 foot. And what I mean by that is when they're going to the basket, when they're attempting to score in transition, not in transition, but, when driving, European players tend to take off of 1 foot. It's a little bit faster. It's a little bit more explosive, but it's also a little bit more predictable, and it leaves you with fewer options. When you are playing off of 1 foot, you're kind of committed to whatever you're doing. The best American players have learned how to play off of 2 feet. It is something that Con Knippel did incredibly effectively last year. Basically, Con's driving to the basket, and he functionally, to some extent, comes to a stop. Now, it may be a very, very quick stop, but he comes to a stop on both feet. And as a result, he can time when he's going to take his jump. He can decide where's the defense. He can decide I'm going to go into a pass versus making a shot here. It just gives you more balance. It gives you a stronger base. It gives you more options, and it allows you to avoid shot blockers. If you're going off of 1 foot, the shot blocker sees that coming and he jumps. There's not a lot you can do about it. A guy playing off of 2 feet doesn't get his shot blocked as much. So when it comes to Dame Sarr, as a really good player in Europe, as a guy who grew up in Europe, they mostly play off of 1 foot. And I want to see, one of the things Duke has been working on with Dame is, are they able to transition him to a little bit more of a 2 foot kind of player? Again, Con Knippel, 4th pick in the draft, because dude played great off of his 2 feet. If you watch LeBron James does an incredible job of playing off of 2 feet. So I'm looking for that on Dame Sarr. I know Dame is going to be a great defender. He has incredible athletic gifts. They will be on full display all the time. But his effectiveness in the half court will likely to be dependent on 2 things. 1, is he a consistent shooter from the outside? And 2, can he play off of 2 feet? And so I'm really intrigued at seeing if Duke has begun to get that out of him.
I think with Dame Sarr, the balance is what we're looking for. There's going to be opportunities for him to kind of, like you said, kind of explode to the rim, go off 1 foot and drop a bunny on somebody's face, right? There's going to be those opportunities, but that's not all that he needs to be aiming to do.
Right.
It's got to be a nice little balance. And with 2 feet, it makes it where, like you said, there's a lot of options. We, in our day, Jason, they called it the triple threat, right? Position. If you have 2 feet and you have the ball in the triple threat position, you're more balanced and you're able to do a bunch of different things with a basketball, whether it be pass, drive, or shoot. So I think that's what we want to see from him, and I'm looking forward to seeing how his offense has evolved from some of the raw, air quotes, raw footage that we saw this summer to now.
Yeah, I want to be really clear, by the way, that playing off of 2 feet is not sort of how you start. But that triple threat position, that's how you start. playing off 2 feet refers to when a guy is driving, when a guy is, on his way into the lane to essentially finish.
Right, when he's jumping off of 2 feet. Yep. Because you're balanced in the air.
Yeah, exactly.
You can finish through contact, especially if you're a smaller guy. Like, and when I say smaller, like rail thin, right? Like, and he's not the widest of dudes, but he does have some strength on him. But when you have 2 feet, your base is strong, your foundation is strong. So when you go up, it's harder to bring you, out of your element, and you can finish through contact and then hopefully get N1s and go to the line.
Exactly.
Yeah. The next thing I have, I think, is one that's been a question for a lot of us this summer. And again, it's not necessarily a competition, but it kind of is the starting position of point guard, Caleb Foster versus Caden Boozer, and how that's going to work. And we've seen the transformation of Caleb Foster's body this summer. He's become chiseled. I guess he took some notes from Sion James's playbook. And then you have Caden Boozer, who comes in. Obviously, he comes in with his twin brother. That connectivity between the two players is unmatched, and Caleb's is never going to have a leg up or be equal when it comes to the connectivity with Cameron Boozer. But in the course of the grand scheme of things, while the offense may be running mostly through Cam Boozer, is obviously not a two-man team. You got to have someone who can fill out a whole team and who can run an entire offense and also produce from that spot. And I'm looking to see, are they on the same team? Will we see lineups that have both of them on the floor? Because that's possible. Are they going to line up against each other to kind of showcase what it would be like where one's on the floor versus the other? Will they both get opportunities to play with Cameron Boozer, with Pat Gongba, with Isaiah Evans? That I'm looking to see, because they kind of divide these up fairly evenly, and sometimes they switch at the air quotes halftime. We may see that. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that has blossomed, and maybe, I guess, from the eye test perspective, who has the leg up when it comes to being that starting point guard when the season starts in November.
Yeah, the thing we're not going to really get to see is, at least in my opinion, is, sort of where these guys fall in the rotation. Because, if this was an exhibition game, and we're going to get to those very quickly, we're like 2 weeks away or something like that, I think we get a better sense. How much is Caleb playing? How much is Caden playing at point guard? In the blue-white scrimmage, they're going to play 20 minutes, or however long it is. They're going to play equal minutes, and I'm really intrigued at seeing what that divide is like once the season gets along. That's unfortunately something that we won't learn from Countdown. All right, the next thing I'm looking for at Countdown is something from Nick Hamenia, and specifically, it's his connectivity, his passing. How much is Nick Hamenia's passing a major weapon for this Duke team? We've heard a lot of talk about the intelligence of this guy, of his ability to find his teammates in creative kind of ways. I've seen some videos from practice. I've seen a little snippets here and there where it's eye-opening. If Nick Hamenia is going to have a big role on this team, I think it will be because he's a good shooter. He has good positional size. He probably does a lot of things really well, but he does one thing great, and that is connect his teammates with his passing. So I'm going to really be on the lookout to see how much he's able to do that in the blue-white.
The next thing, Jason, I guess the third thing that I have for what to see at Countdown is the evolution of Bit Pat. The evolution of Pat Gongba. When we had Carl on here, was the last episode, we talked about the fact that Big Pat has become Slim Pat. But I also think we've seen an evolution in how they have presented the game that he's going to have on the court this summer. We've seen him shoot a lot of threes in some of these videos. We've seen him at the top of the key, kind of not necessarily running the offense, but being literally at the top of the key, swinging the ball around, taking jumpers, kind of having an outside-inside game as opposed to an inside-outside game. But Jason, I think we also saw flashes of what he could do last year, because not only can he defend off the hedge, right? Like, he could come out and be that guy who can defend 1 through 5. That's something he wasn't able to do as much at the start of the season, but grew into that role to something where we were able to have him for large stretches on the floor on defense. But also on offense, he could set a high pick. And from there, you have options for him. It's not just going to be him rolling to the basket. He could start to the basket and fake back behind the line, the three-point line, and take a jumper there. He can fake towards the basket, stop at the free throw line to get the ball there. there's a lot of options for him that we've kind of seen them, introduce in a way throughout the summer. So I'm looking to see how his game has evolved from last year to this year. And, the fact that most people that we've talked to have kind of pegged him as the starting five so far, or at least when the season starts. I want to see again how he handles himself as not just a guy on the court, but one of the guys on the court, because now that's the big step up in production that is going to have to come from him both on offense and defense.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Evan Maya, who is a very, 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 very smart observer of college basketball, uses statistics, advanced models, and things like that to project things, projects Pat Gongba as like one of the top 30 or so players in the country next year. I mean,
we've heard that. It's not in one frame, it's not eye opening, but another frame, like, he said Pat, right? Like, yeah, of all the players of the team, he said Pat is one of the top 30. So it's eye opening in a way, but also we're not surprised that he's starting to get that kind of love.
Yeah, I mean, he's functionally projecting him to be the second best player on this Duke team after Cameron Boozer. And yeah, it's going to be very interesting. I wonder if we're going to get a true sense of what Pat can do in the blue-white because of the scope that Malik Brown had on his knee. Malik Brown is, I'm almost certain, I would imagine, we don't have anything definitive. I can't imagine Malik Brown is going to be playing in the blue-white. So we're going to see Pat going up against Ife Ufuchukwu. And I don't know if that's going to be a true representation of what Pat can do, although if he is, a guy who's not untalented and probably is a better defensive player, at least in terms of the size and the challenges he presents, than he is as an offensive player. And look, blue-white, we've seen Christian Reeves dominate the blue-white scrimmage before Donald, so you never know what's going to happen. But
I will say, even though, and I think, during media day, I believe John Shire said that Malik Brown is taking part in some of the drills. So we may see him do warm-ups and stuff. He'll come out in uniform and things like that. He'll do the introductions, but he probably won't play. At least I'm not expecting him to play a second on Friday night. But I will say, when it comes to Ife, we know Ife is a guy who's kind of a back-to-the-basket type of player. And so we'll get to see some glimpses of how Pat handles a center like that, because he's going to run into centers this year that are taller than him, that are perhaps as wide, if not wider than him, and are more back to the basket, traditional low post type of guys, and how he pulls those guys out to the perimeter, how he makes them kind of work around and get tired, and how he finishes through contact and plays them on defense. So again, we may not get a full glimpse at this, but we're going to get glimpses.
Yeah, exactly. All right, the last of my three things, I guess this will take us to 6 total things that we are looking for from Countdown, involves 2 different players. And it's a very simple question, which is, how much have Darren Harris and Isaiah Evans grown their games from last season? I don't know. There's a lot of conversations needs to happen about that, Donald. I think it makes perfect sense. In the case of Darren Harris, we've heard a lot of very interesting things coming out of Duke camp, that he is in way better shape than he was a year ago. And that, after last season, he was hurt a little bit in the preseason camp last year. It probably held him back to the extent that he was able to work his way into the rotation. He, honestly, in competitive games, he was not in the rotation for Duke last year. And I think the expectation is that he will very much be in the rotation this year. How much is he more than just a stand there 3-point shooter for Duke? And the same kind of applies to Isaiah Evans, although last year we obviously saw a great deal more of Isaiah. But I want to see if Isaiah Evans is Isaiah out there to shoot a 3-pointer every 3 minutes he's on the floor, or is he out there to create a little bit more for other people? Is he out there to be dangerous in ways other than just hoisting from 3? And make no mistake, I don't have a problem if Isaiah Evans wants to go out there and just shoot a ton of 3-pointers, because he's shown he can hit, low, mid, maybe even high 40s of those 3-pointers. Take them as much as you want, buddy. But Isaiah Evans and this Duke team reaching their full potential involves Isaiah maturing into more than just that.
I would argue that Darren Harris and Isaiah Evans are the 2 guys we've heard about the most this summer. They've had the most questions. They've had the most buzz coming out of the summer workouts as far as the transformation of their game or how their game is coming along. The fact that Darren Harris stayed, we heralded the fact that he decided to stick it out and come back for a second year. And throughout the early part of the summer, we heard, Darren Harris is killing everybody. He's hitting every three. He's not missing. And so again, I'm excited to see that on a little bit more of a wider scale. And with Slim, like you said, we saw Showtime Slim last year. We saw kind of all facets of his game in spurts. And I think entering the summer, most people pegged Isaiah as the guy that was going to be second as far as production to Cameron Boozer. And so we've kind of heard about him kind of preparing for that type of role all summer. Is that going to transpire? This is, again, the first step of that. And again, going against teammates is not an indication of anything, but I want to kind of see how that game has evolved as you are so much looking forward to as well.
Yeah, and one other note that I want to have, there was a Brotherhood podcast this past week that featured both Caleb Foster and Showtime Slim, and they functionally asked each other, which teammate is going to surprise people the most, and they both started by talking about Darren Harris. They immediately talked about how proud they are of the effort he's made to get better, and I think it speaks volumes when your teammates. We've heard it from coaches, and now we're also hearing it from teammates. Everybody's talking about Darren. So that makes me very excited. By the way, on that Brotherhood podcast, Slim also talked about Dame Sarr and how athletic he is, and how Dame's history playing with pros makes him really ready for this level. And then the last thing they talked about, not the last thing, but one of the other things that struck me was they talked about their funniest teammates, and they all said Big Pat and Iffy are the two funniest of the Blue Devil teammates. I like that. I always want that little insight. Who's the guy who's cracking up the locker room? It's Big Pat and it's Ife Uchukwu.
Of course, the two tallest guys on the team are cracking jokes. Everybody's like, let the big guys crack the jokes. I'm not gonna diss them because they're taller and bigger than me. But I will say, Jason, last summer, after every practice, after every media thing, after anything where people could ask, hey, who's the guy out there that's surprising you the most, or who's the guy out there that that you've seen come along, everybody last year said Malik Brown. Remember that? Everyone was like, Malik Brown is a problem. Everyone's going to know his name. He's going to be a fan favorite because you just cannot guard him. And on defense, you just cannot get past him. Everyone so far this summer has said nothing but great things about Darren Harris. Every teammate, every time someone throws a camera or a microphone in someone's face and they say, who's the guy that's come along the most? Darren Harris is the first name out of all of their mouths. And so I'm looking forward to seeing that, because if it's anything like what Malik Brown did last year, right, we're in for a great year from Darren Harris.
Yeah, I think it'll be at the other end of the floor. Malik Brown was making problems on defense, I hope.
Correct.
I think Darren
we're a balanced team, Jason. Yeah. Offense and defense.
Exactly. All right, we're going to take a quick break. On the other side, the other big athletic event happening this weekend involving the Duke Blue Devils is on the football field, where the Blue Devils are traveling across the country to California. We're going to tell you what to expect from that game in just a moment.
Did my card go through?
Oh no.
Your small business depends on its internet. So switch to Verizon Business. And you could get LTE business internet starting at $39 a month when paired with select business mobile plans. That's unlimited data for unlimited business.
There we go.
Get the internet you need at the price you want. Verizon Business. Starting price for LTE business internet, 25 megabits per second unlimited data plan with select Verizon Business smartphone plan savings. Terms apply.
Tonight, turn down the noise of the day and focus on the rest with AGZ, the nightly drink for winding down and resting up. New from AG1. AGZ supports your body's natural sleep cycle with clinically studied key herbs, adaptogens, and minerals in amounts supported by research. And no melatonin, helping you wake feeling rested. Wind down, rest up with AGZ. Learn more at drinkagz.com.
We're back from the commercial break. Donald and Jason here to preview a little bit of Duke football action. The 3-2 Duke Blue Devils will take on the 4-1 Cal Bears. Cal is, like Duke, undefeated in the ACC, but unlike Duke, they've only played one game, not two games, and frankly, they beat Boston College not the most impressive of teams out there. Donald, I will tell you really quickly, one of the things that I've noticed about Cal is this is an opportunistic team on defense. Their coach is known as a defensive-minded kind of coach. They've got 5 interceptions on the season. That's a big number. And I noticed that, like, they don't give up a lot. Their ability to disrupt the passing game, they're only giving up 195 yards per game passing. Get a bunch of interceptions. Don't allow teams to complete a lot of passes. Don't let them get a lot of yards passing. These are things that, Duke's best part of Duke's game is probably Darian Mensah passing the ball. And so this has been a really interesting test of the Duke quarterback and wide receivers against a very good Cal defensive backfield.
You know how you kind of neutralize that, Jason? And I've seen some of Cal's games, and that loss was striking against San Diego State because it felt like a lot of things that they had been doing well to that point just came totally loose in
they
that
lost,
game.
By the way, they lost that game 35-0. I mean, they got
34-0. Yeah.
34. Yeah. They got the doors blown off of them by San Diego State, but they've looked pretty good in their other games.
Right. And they've scored a lot of points, and we'll get to the offense in a second. But on defense, the one thing is, you mentioned they're opportunistic. They do go for those big plays, right? The reason why they have 5 interceptions, the reason why they have a bunch of passes defensed, I think it's 21 passes defensed in 5 games, which is a lot. It's because they go for those big plays. But against San Diego State, they would go for those big plays and they would miss them. And because of that, San Diego State was able to move the sticks and get some big plays and score a lot of points. I think for the one thing, and we say this almost every week for Duke football, but we need the running game to establish itself early so that they're a little bit more timid about making those big time moves. The Nate train, it's time to go choo-choo again. Anderson Castle, those guys, like, if they can continue to do well and move the sticks like they have been doing the last couple of weeks, that is going to really help Mensah be in the back and be able to make these decisions that help move the ball further downfield quickly. We have great wide receivers. Our wide receivers are getting great separation. I will say that, some of these play calls that we've had have allowed for some of these big plays to materialize, even if they don't work. The fact that they're there lets me know that, again, if they're going to try and go for the home run, it's going to be there at times. Also, there's going to be times where, like I said, on a 5-yard out or a 10-yard out or something like that, Cal is going to try and go for the big play. They're going to try and go for the interception. And if they're able to get that ball in, they can turn and go very quickly because there's going to be nobody behind him to cover that defensive player who's going for the home run play. So on defense, I think this is going to be interesting because if we can continue to move the sticks, that defense will get tired. They'll start making mistakes, and that's where San Diego State was able to expose them.
Yeah, let's get to the offense for a moment. And so Cal has – are you going to try and pronounce this quarterback's name? Yeah, let me see if you can do it. Pronounce their quarterback's name for me.
Sagapulatele.
Sagapulatele, is that it?
That is it.
All I know is everyone calls him JKS. Jaron Kiawe Sagapulatele is the quarterback for the Cal Bears. He's a freshman, although he started his career at Oregon, where he redshirted for a year. Dude was a really highly touted recruit out of high school, from Hawaii, I believe. And was considered one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the country from a recruiting standpoint, a top 100 recruit. This was a big time recruit. He didn't get it, there at Oregon, and he transferred after 1 year, and he comes to Cal. He's been pretty good so far for them, hasn't he?
Yeah, and I think the difference between him and some of the other quarterbacks we've seen is that he is able to move around and create space to throw. He's not going to run downfield a lot. I think he only has 19 yards or something, or 21 yards or something, on 19 carries. But the thing about him is he keeps plays alive by being mobile behind the line of scrimmage, moving around so that he can get an angle to throw, allows for his wideouts to get a little bit more open. And so I think our defense really needs to watch for that, particularly the line. If the line can collapse around him and make him throw the ball quicker, that leads to more mistakes. He has 4 interceptions on the year. He has 8 touchdowns and 4 interceptions on the year. He's only completing 61.6% of his passes. So it's on the lower end of what you want for a quarterback. But he's also able to get some big plays because of the fact that he's able to move around, buy his wideouts time while they get open, and then he can throw the ball a long way. So that's where his strengths are. He has 1,234 yards passing on the year, and I'm sure a great chunk of them are from where he was having to scramble a little bit, buy himself some time, get his wideouts open, and then throwing a long pass to break the backs of the defense.
Yeah, I was looking at the Cal stats and things like that. Their main running back is Kendrick Raphael, who's he's fine. They look like they're more of a passing team than a rushing team in terms of what they're trying to accomplish on offense. I know that they've got a tight end that they're very excited about, who's become a big Mason Minnie is his name. He's become a pretty big part of their passing attack. So the Duke linebackers are going to have to pay attention to him defensively. The other thing about this game is, even though it's being played at Cal, Duke is a favorite. I was a little surprised to see that the line opened up with Duke as a 3.5-point favorite. It's moved now. Duke's about a 2.5-point favorite. It looks like some of the money is coming in on Cal. People think People thought Duke by a field goal on the road was a lot against Cal, so the line has come down a little bit. But Duke is still a favorite in this contest, although not a big favorite at all. And I feel like this game, God, I don't know, it feels like a trap game to me a little bit. It'd be so easy for Duke to be looking ahead to what everyone says is going to be a really, really big game against Georgia Tech. And you're heading all the way out to the West Coast. So you're going to have a little bit of jet lag to deal with. It's a 10 p.m. Late night start for Duke, and the guys probably aren't used to playing that late in the evening. I mean, by the time this game ends, it's gonna be 1 o'clock in the morning. Beyond that, so I feel like there's a lot about this game that makes me nervous. I think if it plays out the way everyone expects, Duke's probably better, not by a lot, but Duke's probably a little bit better. But yeah, and this is a big one for they could, the course of your season can turn on a game like this.
I'm not quite sure it should be treated as a trap game, although it kind of is. The reason why I say that is because after this game, which, as you mentioned, 10:30 start on the East Coast, after this game, we do have a bye, and then we play Georgia Tech. Then we have another bye, and then we play Clemson, two of the better teams remaining on our schedule. And I think the idea is you go out and fight through the jet lag is going to be the biggest point because this is our first trip out to the West Coast. Jason, I have to look back. Someone out there will probably know better than I when the last time Duke played in California. It has been a long time since they have been so far out west to play a game of football, and also to do it at night, which is kind of prime time for the West Coast audience. I think the one thing is to fight through all that, they need to continue to do what they've been doing. The one thing, Jason, that we said after you guys said after the Tulane game and after the Illinois game, what we weren't able to do was win the turnover battle. What have we done the last 2 weeks against NC State and against Syracuse? Win the turnover battle. That has been what has changed both of those games, and I think it will change this game as well. If we win the turnover battle, it will be another Duke victory coming all the way back home for that week off.
I do not disagree at all. We've talked about the fact that these two teams sort of what one does well, the other one does well in opposition as such, and both teams with decent records who are doing well in the ACC so far. So yeah, winning that turnover battle super important. The other thing is, I don't want to see us. Let's not get another bunch of 15-yard penalties, guys. Let's cut down on that a little bit as well.
Right. Let's not kick ourselves in the butt with some of these penalties because
exactly.
Correct.
Hey, Donald, one last note before we go. I know you're aware of this. The Splash Brothers.
Yes. The original Splash Brothers are back.
Exactly. It has been revealed by the NBA that Seth Curry and Steph Curry will be playing together on the Golden State Warriors this season. Obviously, Steph has been a mainstay on the Warriors for a long time, but his younger brother is coming all the way from Charlotte, where he played last year, all the way out to Golden State to play this season. It's worth noting that even though Seth is not sort of a guy who plays big minutes in the NBA anymore, dude can still light up the nets. Last year, he led the league, led all of pro basketball by hitting better than 45% of his three-point shots. So the Warriors aren't bringing him in just as a favored Steph. They're bringing Seth in because Seth can still fill up the basket. I wonder if they're going to see any playing time together. I sort of feel like,
oh yeah, they're going to put them on the floor at the same time. That's going to happen because Jason, it also makes sense, right? You just said it yourself in the stats. The fact that Seth Curry was the league leader in 3-point percentage, coupled with his brother, who's the greatest shooter that ever laced up basketball shoes.
Yep.
Like that takes a lot of pressure off of him. The fact that if you have Steph Curry and you're doubling him and all Steph has to do is find his brother in the corner who's going to knock it down almost half of the time, like that's a problem for defenses, and that's going to help spread the floor. And the other side, there's going to be one player. I'm not saying I know everybody in the NBA is smart, but there will be one player that is going to guard Seth Curry with his life. And realize as the ball goes over to the other Curry that was the wrong one he was supposed to be guarding. That was just Seth. And the greatest shooter that ever lived is calmly shooting a three from 40 feet with nobody in front of him. So there's going to be that breakdown. But I think in all seriousness, I think, it's like you said, this is not the Nessus Antetokounmpo being signed as a cheerleader here. This is Seth Curry coming to help the Golden State Warriors try to win another championship. And I think it's going to be really fun to watch those two on the basketball court because I don't think we have ever seen that, right? They didn't go to college together. They haven't played the NBA together.
Right.
So this is the first time probably since high school maybe, that they have been on the court together. Really looking forward to this.
Yeah, my bet is they've spent some time in the playground and in the gym together a bit. But
yeah, probably. Yeah, we have not seen that though. We get to watch that on ESPN and NBC and Amazon Prime or wherever you find your local basketball. Exactly.
And by the way, can I have a few of Del Curry's genes? Because man, the shooting genetics in the Curry family are strong.
Does Del just quit his Hornets job now and just move out to the West Coast and watch every game?
Yeah.
I mean, I would not be. I would not hold it against them. I'm sure Hornets fans wouldn't either. Jason, real quick before we get out of here, can we make a quick final plug for the Dribble for Victory Against Cancer that is on Saturday after? I know this is something that you did last year. We were big behind. We announced the date of this as being Saturday and said that because of prior commitments, we weren't able to make it. But again, we encourage donations if people are there. Definitely go out. It's a great opportunity to meet the basketball team, meet Coach Shire and the coaching staff. And it's a lot of fun. And obviously it's for a good cause. So despite the fact that we are not there and we're not fielding a team like we did last year, that does not stop our support of that particular event. So hoping that all of you were able to contribute $1, whatever that you can. But also if you're in the area and you have time to go out and take part of it, I think afterwards they're doing, you get to go watch the Duke UNC women's volleyball game, which
packed.
Which will be.
I want to see the stadium packed for that.
Yeah, that'll be fun. Those are usually awesome games. So encourage everybody to check it out.
Yeah, 100%. It was a great event last year, and again, we're sorry we can't make it for that this year. By the way, your entry, so to speak, your ticket to be a part of it, in addition to allowing you access to all the Duke basketball players who will be along the route, signing autographs and just chatting with people and things like that. There's also a lunch involved. I'm pretty sure it's some barbecue.
Mm-hmm.
North Carolina, we wouldn't have it any other way. And then you get to go in and watch the Duke versus UNC volleyball match. Anytime we play the Tar Heels, we need to pack the stands.
Absolutely.
All right, that's going to do it here on the latest edition of the DBR Podcast. Like I said, Donald and I will be back with you over the weekend to recap everything we saw at Countdown, recap the football game and all that stuff. Until then, here's the Duke band playing us out and taking us